Right, welcome to this week's episode of Mystery Legion. Today we're going to be looking at the Lone Ranger, Zorro, and Tonto. So if you don't know who the Lone Ranger is, he was really important in the 70s when I was growing up. I had one of the 1973 Gabriel full-size action figures, but they're too expensive to have today. I don't know what happened to mine, but I think I had one of the Lone Ranger and one of Butch Cavendish, who was the villain. But Gabriel kept the license for them, and when the 3.75-inch scale became popular in 1980 or 81, the Lone Ranger, or the Legend of the Lone Ranger action figures, came out to support a fairly bad movie that was out. So here you can see I've got a Lone Ranger and I've got a Tonto. They had an extended line with a couple of other characters like Wild Bill Hickok and a couple other characters. General Custer, for example, was another villain that they were going to use. You can see I've got two of these guys, two of the Lone Ranger anyways. He was kind of a favorite of mine. Whoops, there he goes. Fell right over. Anyhow, Zorro came later. Now technically Zorro comes from a different time period. The show that I remember watching came on around the same time as Batman in the 70s, and it was the old Clayton Moore Lone Ranger show, which was actually from the 60s, maybe even earlier. It was a great show. Glenn Strange, who would also play Frankenstein, was Butch Cavendish, and Clayton Moore, who was this great Hollywood stuntman, played the Lone Ranger, and he was spectacular. If you've ever seen the movie Hail Caesar, where there's this acrobat cowboy that's able to do all these amazing stunts, and then he just kind of walks off like it's no big deal, that was Clayton Moore in real life. He was a circus acrobat. He did all his own stunts. He was just amazing, and lived a long, full life, as far as I can tell. Okay, so anyways, those are not original horses. What you're looking at right there, I believe I have it over here. This is the silver I have is a Papo horse. I was not a big collector of the horses. My sister had some of the big plastic horses. This one's Papo, so it was fairly inexpensive, new from Amazon. I also have some Schleich and Papo, Schleich, and I might have another type of horse. I can't remember what kind I got for Tonto. I actually do have a here's Tonto, if you can check him out. The other cool thing about these, look at Tonto. If you notice his gun belt here, it actually had a place for both a gun and a knife. I no longer have either the gun or the knife, but I was able to find a place that was making little replacement parts where you could get a bunch of them. They were making them for G.I. Joe figures, which is pretty much the same size, so I was able to get a couple of those. I only have one Tonto. Yeah, they're pretty affordable on eBay if you don't mind getting a loose action figure or one that's not in the best of shape, and I don't mind at all. It's just Lev Cabinet. Here's my Zorro. Like I said, Zorro was kind of, but not really, part of the same line. He didn't show up until a couple of years later. As you can see, you may have guessed that I've outfitted my Zorro with a spare Darth Vader cape. These vinyl capes came on the 3.75 5 points of articulation action figures of the day. I can't remember if Zorro came with a cape or not, but it was easy enough to just get one for about $1 and throw it on him, and he looks good with it. I like how he looks all uplit like that. That sword is not an original sword either. I can't remember where the sword came from, but it seems to fit his hand okay, and it doesn't fall out. And here's Zorro on his horse. Now my horse over here, I believe, is a Schleich. That's a Schleich horse. I think it's a Black Beauty. Once again, these are not the original horses for it. I actually do have a an original silver. I can't remember if it's a silver or Scout. I think it's a Scout. I actually have a Scout that I got from eBay. It hasn't arrived yet, but I noticed that it was not being bid on, and it was a fairly low price, so I sniped it right at the end and didn't pay much for it at all. So here's my Tonto with my not real Scout horse on there. And that Scout is indeed a Schleich horse. I think it looks perfect with them. Here they are doing a little rotate here. Western stuff is really cool. I don't know if you've ever watched Toy Story and you've seen the big conflict, you know, when Woody was the favorite toy and then Buzz shows up and suddenly science fiction toys are in. That definitely happened, but I really did like the Western stuff and still do to this day. It's got kind of a classic appeal. It's the same thing to me almost as Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it's this sort of lawless, anything can happen environment, and adventures just take place. That's why I love the Old West stuff. Doesn't Scout look great? I think that's probably my favorite of the three of them is Scout right there. I keep an eye out for horses every once in a while. I think they're pretty. And if you get them in this size, I think these are meant to be like ponies. They look pretty good. So there you have it. There's my Lone Ranger, Tonto, and Zorro action figures. Thanks for watching.